Here's something nobody wants to say out loud, so I will say it for you. Every few months, Harry and Meghan do a thing. They fly somewhere, they shake hands, they hug a child, they post it, and the world argues about whether it's real or fake, selfless or selfish, royal or cosplay, and then the cycle resets. But this time something is different. Because this time the cycle is not resetting, it's unraveling. Welcome back, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue. And here's where we are right now. And buckle up because of the sheer volume of Harkles news in the last few weeks is staggering. First, Hugo Vickers, one of the most respected royal biographers alive, the man met Queen Elizabeth over 40 times, dropped a bombshell book. And the headline that came out of it, that this stress Harry and Meghan caused the Queen in the last years of her life, and I'm paraphrasing him here, cannot be overstated. He reveals that whenever Harry would call his grandmother, she asked her lady-in-waiting to stay with her. So let that sit for a second. The Queen needed emotional backup just to take a phone call from her own grandson. And according to Vickers, her private description of Harry's departure from the family was devastating in its simplicity. She reportedly described his new role as being, quote, a carrier for Archie. Not a prince, not a humanitarian, a carrier. Now, remember, the Queen also suggested that Harry should wait a year before marrying Meghan. He did not listen, and Vickers claims the Queen did not even like the wedding dress. Someone close to her described her attitude on the wedding day as, and again, I'm paraphrasing, "You get on with it. It has nothing to do with me." So that was, back then, a 92-year-old woman washing her hands of a situation she saw coming from a mile away. And then comes Jordan. A few weeks ago, the Harkles flew over 7,500 miles to Amman for a surprise 2-day humanitarian visit with the World Health Organization. They toured refugee camps. They attended roundtables. Meghan kicked a soccer ball at a youth center, and Harry stood there. And here's the thing nobody wants to admit. It looked like a royal tour. It walked like a royal tour. It had motorcades, ambassador receptions, and diplomatic handshakes. But it was not a royal tour. They are not working royals. They represent no government. They represent themselves. But what really caught everyone's attention was a brief moment at the Satari refugee camp. According to insiders, Harry and Meghan exchanged some terse words on the pitch. Quick, sharp. The kind of exchange where one of them is clearly not happy and the other is pretending nobody noticed. I'll let you decide which is which. Now, their representatives denied it. Of course they did. Their statement basically said it was Meghan's show and Harry was just along for the ride, which, if you think about it, is one of the most accidentally revealing denials I've ever heard. Because that's exactly what it looked like. And this is where the crazy part of my brain kicks in. Because the real story is not whether they had a spat on a soccer field. The real story is what they were doing there in the first place. The Archwell Foundation, their big charitable vehicle, has been essentially restructured and gutted. Staff reduced, their parents' network initiative handed off to another nonprofit. Insiders told Page 6 the quiet part out loud. They don't have a foundation to speak of anymore. So what were they actually doing in Jordan? Here's the uncomfortable answer nobody wants to give you. They were being seen. That's it. That's the product. Their presence is the deliverable. And the entire world argued about it for a week, which means on some level it worked. But at what cost? Because the palace, the actual palace, the one that represents the actual crown, was reportedly livid. One insider said it looked like a full-scale royal tour without the permission slip. And coming just days after Prince Andrew's arrest, the timing could not have been worse. Or, depending on how cynical you are, it could not have been more deliberate. But here's where I need you to pay attention. My roguies, because all of this, the Jordan trip, the Vickers book, the Tours exchange, it all connects to the one story that won't go away. The divorce question. Now, I know, they have been divorcing in the media for years. Harry himself joked about it at the Deal Book Summit, saying that they have apparently divorced 12 times already. And fair enough, tabloid divorce predictions are a cottage industry. I get it. But what's different this time is that the rift is not gossip, it's geography. Multiple sources, not one outlet, not one anonymous tipster, but a consistent pattern across different publications and insiders throughout all of 2026 are describing the same fault line. Harry wants to go back to England. Meghan doesn't. And before you roll your eyes and say, we've heard this before, I know, but the context has changed. King Charles has cancer. The man is 77 years old. Harry visited him at Clarence's house last September. They had tea, and insiders say that visit sharpened something inside Harry that hasn't gone away. A sense of urgency, of time running out, of conversations that he may never get to have. He brings up moving back to the UK repeatedly. He wants Archie educated in England. He wants his children to know their grandfather before it's too late. And Meghan associates the United Kingdom with every terrible thing that has ever happened to her. The press, the scrutiny, the racism, the institution that she believes failed to protect her. Harry isn't wrong for wanting to reconcile with his dying father. Well, in all cases, there would have been no need for any reconciliation if he hadn't been such a knobhead. And Meghan is not wrong for not wanting to go back to a place that traumatized her. Or at least that's what she tells Harry. Well, those two truths are pulling them in opposite directions, and at some point the rope breaks. One insider puts it this way. He and Meghan are broken in a lot of ways, and this drive to return to Britain could truly break them. That is not tabloid exaggeration. That is someone close to the situation saying the quiet part out loud. And just when you think the situation can't get more surreal, they announce Australia. Mid-April, first trip down under in 7 years. Since 2018, since the pregnancy announcement, since the last time they were genuinely popular and the world was on their side. But here's how the Australia trip is set up. Harry is speaking at the Inter-Age Psychosocial Safety Summit in Melbourne, and tickets start at $1,500. Meghan is headlining her Best Live Retreat weekend in Sydney, and tickets start at $2,700. The VIP upgrade, which includes a group table photo with Meghan, costs $3,200. Let me say that again. $3,200 for a group photo with Meghan at a table. And this is the part where I need you, the lovely person watching this video, to be honest with yourself for 30 seconds. Because the uncomfortable truth about the Harkles is not that they are grifters. Is that they are doing exactly what our culture rewards. We built a system where influence is the product, where presence is the value proposition, where the perception of caring about something is more marketable than actually fixing it. So Harry and Meghan didn't invent that game. They are just spectacularly bad at hiding that they are playing it. So, a PR expert told the Mirror that this trip is their attempt to reignite their global brand. Another expert was less diplomatic. He said that they're heading into the hornet's nest covered in sticky honey. And a third pointed out that attaching Meghan's name to high-ticket exclusive events while facing criticism about authenticity is, and I love this phrase, totally tone-deaf. And meanwhile, there's a change.org petition with over 35,000 signatures from Australians saying, why should we pay for their security when they quit their royal jobs? And that is the trap they built for themselves. They left the institution that gave them security, status, and structure. They moved to California to be free. And now they're charging thousands of dollars for the privilege of being in the same room as the freedom they purchased with the only currency that made them interesting in the first place, being royal. And this brings me back to Hugo Vickers and the Queen. Because the most devastating detail in that entire book is not the care for Archie line or the wedding dress or the waiting suggestion. It's the image of a 92-year-old woman in the final chapter of the most extraordinary public life of the 20th century, needing someone to hold her hand just to take a phone call from her grandson. That image tells you everything about the cost of the Harkles experiment. They left to escape a broken system, according to themselves. But whatever they build on the other side is a different kind of cage made of Netflix deals and brand partnerships and retreat weekends and humanitarian photo ops in refugee camps where the foundation funding the trip has essentially dissolved. And the person paying the highest price is the same person it's always been. It's gingerbread. Because Harry is the one who is homesick. Harry is the one whose father has cancer. Harry is the one who stood on a soccer field in Jordan looking like he was just along for the ride, which, according to his own representatives, is apparently the ideal version of events. So the Harkles are running out of map, my rogues. They're running out of countries to visit, brands to launch, interviews to give, and cycles to reset. And the one person who saw it all coming, who literally told Harry to wait, who described his exit as becoming a babysitter, who needed emotional support just to hear his voice, she's gone. And she can't say, I told you so. But this book says it for her. So, my Royal Rogues, I want to hear it from you. Do you think Australia is going to be the trip that finally forces the Harkles to confront what they have become? Or is this just another stop on the world's most expensive identity crisis? Let me know in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue. Much love and bliss.